Have you ever tried to grow squash or zucchini? It wasn't too successful. Well, I've got about 5 reasons why you probably hadn't been too successful, because I had to learn. So I want to share this information with you guys to help you grow the most produce you can and waste minimum time growing it. Now, these zucchini, these are actually crookneck squash. I believe I got the label. The label must have got stepped on. But I usually try to label my rows to help me understand. I do quite a bit, and I sometimes need a little help remembering which plant is which. But these crookneck squash, they look fairly good. There's nothing wrong with them at all. They're growing just fine. I mean, there's a few little setbacks. This one here didn't take off like the other ones did. Neither did this one. But one of the first reasons why sometimes you might not be too successful is visiting the garden. I'm out here every day visiting the garden. If I had a long work day, I'll still come out sometimes and check on. You have to check on some stuff. There's something to check on every day in the garden. And that goes hand in hand with the rest of the reasons why you might not be successful, and I want you to be. So, number 2 is flower development. Sometimes these zucchini plants, summer squash, winter squash, they can develop their flowers just a little too early. Let me see if I can get in there. See that? That's a little too early for this plant. Let me come around this way and show you how young. That's one of the plants I said that didn't do well with the whole row. That's one of them, that small one there, and this small one here. All of these, believe it or not, here's another small one here that didn't really take off as fast as the others. But look how many flowers it's producing. The whole cluster. And the plant's only that young. So my second reason why you might not be too successful is flower development at a young age. What I do for weeks, I left this here so some flowers can grow for you, to make a video to show you what's necessary when removing the actual flowers. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll get to number 3. So this young plant here, it's too young for flowers. What I do is I go through and I pick off these flowers. Sometimes they'll fall off and help you. And just leave the cluster for now. But as the cluster matures, like this here, I'll go through and remove some of these smaller ones in here until this plant gets big enough to my desired preference to let it start producing fruit. I'll just go through and knock all of these producers here that was getting ready to produce flowers, and knock them off. So what I'm doing is keeping in this vegetative stage of growth, and not letting it try to produce any fruit right now. Let's see if this one has some on it. Sometimes they don't have it on there, but if you have some on there like this one here, it's still too young for me. Y'all can do what you want to do, but from my experience, I like to go in and just remove that flower and any other flower cluster that's getting ready to produce, like these here in the back. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. You would imagine, geez, you're harming the plant's flowers production. Sure am. See that back there? See that flower that was getting ready to produce? Knock it off. I knock all of these off too. You don't want to disturb the, I'll call it the leader, which is the one that's going to continue growing out. Because if you do that, then your plant's going to stop growing. It'll stay growing, it'll stop growing and stay right where you chopped it off at. So we don't want to do that. What we want to do is just get in here, and you see that? I still think the plant's too young to produce flowers. So what I'm going to do is go in here and see these lower ones all the way up to the leader, or to the top, like I was showing you on the last plant. And just remove all of those. See that? I just go in and remove all of them. Because you can stop whenever you're ready to let it start producing flowers to make its own fruit. But I'm just giving you an idea of what you can do when it's young. And I go in and remove these flowers from out of the area, compost them. You just compost these flowers. Now they are edible. Zucchini flowers, squash flowers, they are edible. You can put them in salads, soups, and stuff like that. Moving on. You see these flowers in here on these young plants? There's way too many flowers in here. I'd rather this plant try to grow a little bit more before it starts producing for me. Okay, that's what I've learned. And you can do what you want to do. Sometimes not everybody's able to get out to the garden often, but this is one of the things that's often necessary for good production and healthy plant. You don't want a little tiny plant trying to produce a squash for you when it's not even big enough to do that. So I go in and remove all of the little flowers and where there was going to make flowers without disturbing the leader, the one that's going to continue growing long. These plants can, I've had some squash grow. I had to talk to somebody about that. I had some squash growing like watermelon. They was just sprawling across the whole garden. I mean, far away from the original setting. And they said you got a lot of nitrogen in the soil, and it's running all over the place. So too much nitrogen, I guess, was the key. I mean, it was the problem I had. See, I'll go through and remove some of those. There's a lot of them right here. I might leave the last ones, but these right here, some of them are male and female. But there's going to be so many male and females up at the latter part of the plant that you don't have to worry about that, because I'm removing these. And it's controversial at this stage because now we've got our dark here, which means that it's mature enough definitely to produce your fruit without any problems with the root system. So I'm leaving those. Okay, same thing on here. I'm leaving these because the plant is mature enough on the root system to go ahead and start producing. But on these younger ones, like this one here, it's too young to do anything. So we definitely don't want him producing any flowers and trying to produce fruit. So I go through and pick them off. You're not harming the plant. Your workers, your honeybees and stuff, they got other plants to work on while you're waiting to do these. So I'll leave that little cluster to make sure I don't mess the leader up, because you're not sure where the leader actually is. You can't see where it is. So just leave that cluster, but remove all of every other flower on there that you see while the plant is still young. See that? I go in and just remove every one of them until I see that the plant is strong enough to start making fruit for me. If it's not strong enough to make fruit for me, I really don't want to see it flower. So yeah, I'm gonna leave a few flowers on there because I'm ready for some squash. I mean, some people might think, man, you're hindering your chance of getting the earliest production of fruit. No, what I'm doing is making sure that I do get some good quality fruit when I do get some, because it's really imperative to remove those flowers when they're young, because they'll start trying to make fruit too young. I want to go to my other garden and show you what I've got going on over there. So what I'll do is just take you on over there now. Okay, we're in garden plot 2, and these straight neck squash are looking real good. I've been going through and picking the flowers off of all of these, so there's minimum flowers. But I wanted to show you the difference in growth when you stop that flower production. It takes so much energy out of the root system when you're trying to let that plant produce flowers at a tiny age, at a young age. So what I do is I make sure that all the flowers are off so it can get to at least this stage. This stage here is good. Okay, once it gets to this stage, you can let it go now. Now you'll have zucchini and squash coming out, the yin yang. All you want to do is check a regular harvest to make sure that everything's fine, because this that's the third point I'm going to get to, is the squash vine borer. This little insect is like some kind of spaceship, a UFO, something that comes in just out of the nowhere, different from all the other insects. It's actually a moth, but I realized lately I studied some more about it, and I think it might be a fly. It's a certain kind of fly that comes in and lays its eggs on your plants. And believe it or not, I might have a few, but I stay on top of my, I was going to say chemical treatment, but I stay on top of my treatments to make sure that I don't get that problem, because when the insect lays their eggs, you have a matter of days before it starts getting down to your vines and destroying your plant. So that's why it's imperative for, number one, mistake is not visiting your garden. You have to come out and see if there's something going on. As soon as you notice something going on, we need to come on out here and hop out here and get on that treatment, or regardless of what it is. Now, just because I don't use chemicals don't mean that you can't use chemicals. You can do whatever you want, but I'm trying to grow without low cost, and these are young squash plants as well here. And I've been going through and moving the flowers like I'm going to do again. This is my first time visiting over here in about a couple of days, and so there's more flowers going to always keep coming. So every couple of days, I guess, I come out and remove these flowers. And one good thing about this is that when you do remove the flowers, the squash vine borer, he doesn't see the yellow flower to come visit your plant and start trying to kill it. But look at all these flowers. There's tons of them. I just picked them off a couple of days ago, and they're already trying to make more. And the plant's too young, way too young. Now I've got to pull some weeds from around it. That's the best thing to do. But like I said, it's been a couple of days. We've been having a lot of rain. We had some rain last night. And I removed these flowers so insects don't come and bother it. But you need to remove all of these flowers when the plant is so young and tender like this. See all these little flowers that were going to become flowers? Just pop them off. You see that? And then lay it back on the ground. In the next about a week or so, or two, it'll be ready to let it go and let it produce its flowers. And see all of these flowers? Geez, these are all flowers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's like 10 flowers on this tiny little plant. This plant is way too small. When you guys buy squash from the nurseries and you get your first flower and you're like, cool. It can be exciting to get your first flower because you know that that's where the fruit's gonna come from. But Chris with Tela-grow will tell you all he knows. And from my experience, I went through that same thing. And now I know to go ahead and just remove all of these flowers. And then you come back and wash these plants if you got dirt on them. You do not want dirt on your plants. Sometimes you can't help it. I mean, you see that? Okay. So moving on, I'm gonna come back and do all the rest of them, but moving on to number 4 is a chicken getting loose and tearing it up. So don't let chickens getting in your garden, okay? You might think it's cool to let chickens graze around in your garden and stuff like that, but not really, because they'll tear your plants up and everything else. And the fertilizing from the byproduct of the waste of the chicken, it needs to be composted anyways. So this is a pruning squash. Look at this squash over here in garden number 3 over here. There's some squash back there developing on a flower. A couple of them back there. Ooh, there's a nice one. There's a nice one back there. But I did all of these same procedures. Let me pan out again. I did all these same procedures for this squash here. It's just a small little bed. Because believe it or not, I grow so much stuff. But believe it or not, you don't need that much squash. 3 plants grown the correct way and protected properly will provide you with enough squash for your family. 3 plants. 3 plants if it's grown properly. Here's 3 plants in this pot right here. It's just experiment. I don't do pots too much, but I am for now on because I've got so many pots in the garden space area. I had so many pots. I said, what am I going to do with all these pots? I was thinking about, trees and stuff like that. But what I'm going to do is start using these pots in different ways. I've got 3 in this one and 3 in this one. That's straight neck, and this is crook neck, the yellow zucchini. The yellow squash. And like I said, you want to go through and just remove all the flowers off of these young plants. They're way too young to do anything. I made this soil this season. I'm going to see what happens. Everything's experimental. Look at these beautiful flowers. Like I said, they're edible. So if you wanted some in your salad, while you're removing them, you can take them in and harvest them for your salad makings. So they are edible. You can let them flower out to put them in your salads. But like I said, this is going through, and see how beautiful all these flowers are. And I'm sorry you have to remove them. There'll be more, but what you're trying to do is let the plant get old enough first, please. Let the plant get old enough first before it starts making fruit for you. Look at that. Now that plant's stripped of all of its flowers. And I'm gonna do the same for this one. And now those plants should do exactly like those ones over in garden 3 over there. So there is some maintenance. You can't just really let it go. I think I'm on number 4, but I think number 5 is feeding. Every 2 weeks I come out and feed this stuff some fish fertilizer, which is supposed to be organic. I'm not a soil scientist or any kind of plant scientist. I'm just using what I have to use sometimes to help. I use the organic fish fertilizer, Alaskan fish fertilizer. I'm not a salesman for them or anything like that. I just, that's what I'm using. And it works pretty good because it doesn't burn my plants. I used to use chemical fertilizer, and every time something would go wrong. I would burn my plants up. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I would burn my squash up and plants up, not a squash, just all of my plants. So I stopped doing that, and I found a better way, which is trying to grow organic. But here in Louisiana, in the heat of the summer, it is hard to grow anything organically because these caterpillars from these butterflies, they rule. I mean, they rule. So I have to use products like diatomaceous earth and combatants with a few other things there, a couple other things to help me get some squash. So if you want to grow squash, use these tips. Visit the garden regularly and harvest regularly. I'm going over there in garden plot number 3 over there, and I'm going to harvest what I showed you earlier, which was that now there's more than that over there in there. There's some squash in there, and you can eat that squash at any stage. It's best to get some size, of course, but if you got company coming over and all you had was a small ones like that, nobody's going to know what size it was when it's in the soups or stews or in your dish. You know, I do ground beef and Italian sausage with onions and garlic and bell pepper and squash and probably several other things that I can find that I need to use up. And you don't know what size that, you'll never know what size that, nobody's going to ever know what size those squash were inside that meal. It is so good. The younger, the better. Kind of like no seeds. The more flesh you can get without any seeds is the best. This is Chris with Tela-grow, and I'll tell you everything that I know to get your garden in proper order and to have a successful harvest. Have a good day. Thank you.